So who will I actually meet whilst walking a Camino? If you're planning your first Camino, this might be playing in the back of your mind. What kind of people walk the Camino? Will I get on with them? That's what we're going to talk about this week. So if you're planning your first Camino, and particularly if you haven't traveled a lot, maybe you're traveling from overseas to France or Spain to walk your Camino, you might be wondering, what kind of people will you meet? Will you get on with them? So that's what we're going to be talking about this week. That might seem like a bit of a strange topic, but for those who've walked a Camino before, you'll know what it's like. And maybe you can add some comments down below as well, if you think I've missed anything out on this video. But if you've never walked one before, there can be a little bit of trepidation and nervousness about who will be these people I'm going to meet, and particularly if I'm staying in albergues and things in shared accommodation, you know, what kind of people are going to be there. So let me put your mind at rest. So there are probably two types of people you're going to meet. To cut it down to the basics, there's going to be the locals, and there's going to be the other pilgrims, the hikers, the trekkers. And let me talk about the popular routes in Spain. I'm not going to touch on what it's like in France or some of the more remote routes, but the most common one that new pilgrims walk is the Camino Frances, so I'll share experiences of that. So what are the locals like? It varies. In the back of your mind, remember that pilgrims have been walking along the Camino Frances for over 1,000 years. So the locals are kind of used to people walking through their villages and towns and cities. But the reception you receive is going to be a little bit different, depending where you are. So, for example, I find in the rural communities and the small villages where you know, the economy is not so great, where there are a few small businesses that you know, don't necessarily rely totally on pilgrims for their income, but maybe a large proportion. They're very grateful to have the pilgrims coming through their villages, and you know, that it's helping generate some income for the local communities and so on. It's not just about money. You'll find they're genuinely nice people. I don't know what it is, but you know, all the sort of locals that you meet along those Camino routes are generally really nice people. They're used to seeing pilgrims all the time. They're very helpful. You know, they'll help you out with questions. Yeah, really delightful people. The reception you get is slightly different, probably in some of the major cities. So if you're walking the Camino Frances, you'll be going through Pamplona, which is a great place. You'll be going through Burgos, Leon, you know, it's a couple of other big cities. It's a big city, you know. It's not all about pilgrims. There's quite a few pilgrims passing through there, but there's big local communities. They're attracting people from all over who are not pilgrims, you know, to historical sites and this sort of stuff. So whereas in a small village, it almost feels like everything is there to support the pilgrim, it's not the case in the big cities. I find it's quite different actually, walking through the small villages and rural communities. I just love that, and the peace and quiet and being out in nature. And when I hit the big cities, Burgos I like, it's not a very big city, but Leon, I kind of don't hang around there. I just want to keep on moving through. It's just a big city and kind of reminds me of home. But so the local people generally you're going to find are really, really nice. As you get towards the end of your Camino, into those final stages, and particularly the final 100 kilometers, it generally gets busier, particularly on the Camino Frances. There's a lot more pilgrims, you know, there's coachloads of people, and it gets a little bit more commercial. And so you probably don't get the same vibe from the locals. You know, you're one of 1,000 people that's come down the road that day, or, you know, you're one of 300 people that they've served a coffee to that day. And so there isn't quite the same vibe from the locals. But don't get me wrong, you still meet some wonderful people. It's just not quite the same as some of the more remote areas. So the locals, you're going to love. If you don't speak Spanish, don't be too worried on the Camino Frances. You'll get by, but the more you can speak, the better. if I'm going to spend any time in a country, in a foreign country, or a non-English speaking country, let me say that, I always sort of make an effort to learn at least a few words and phrases, hello and thank you and where's the bathroom and all that kind of stuff. I think it's only polite to do that. You can get away with very, very limited knowledge of Spanish on the Camino Frances. I mean, get away with no knowledge of Spanish, to be honest. But I think it's polite to at least pick up a few words. And the more that you can learn, it's going to make your journey much easier and more fun, because you'll be able to, talk to the locals and so on. So people you're going to meet, the locals. What about the pilgrims? What are they like? You might be worried about that because, again, taking the Camino Frances as an example, if you're walking sort of through, I wouldn't call it peak season, but during the more popular seasons, leaving Saint-Jean, for example, you could have 300 or 400 people leaving Saint-Jean up over the Pyrenees each day. And it's an interesting phenomenon because you get this block of 300 people who are moving down the Camino, sort of at a similar pace to you. So it's a wonderful part of the Camino. You're going to be seeing these familiar faces all the time, but you might be wondering, who is going to be in the next bunk, or who's going to be sort of chatting to you along the trail. One of the most fascinating parts of the Camino is meeting the other pilgrims, because they are such a broad cross-section. So let me put your mind at rest on a few things. It's an ancient Christian pilgrimage, Catholic pilgrimage. Is everybody, praying the rosary, and is everybody a Catholic, and is everybody walking it for religious reasons? No. Some people are. Some people would be walking it for more spiritual reasons. Probably half of people at least are not walking it for any other reason than getting out and enjoying the countryside and seeing a bit of Spain, to be honest. It's a fairly unique way, I think, to spend some time in nature and time away from the hassle of day-to-day living and so on, and getting out into the open air, and that's what people love about it. But it does attract a certain type, and whether they are not, they might be walking for religious reasons, spiritual reasons. They're generally walking for a purpose of some sort, either to clear their head from stuff that's going on at home, or a lot of people might be getting over a relationship or a bereavement. It's probably only a small portion. I'd hazard a guess, maybe 20%, who are doing it because they like hiking or something like that. Hikers will enjoy the Camino, but it's not really about the hiking. It's about the history and the culture and the sense of community and that sense of spirituality. And so the people are walking it for all manner of reasons. But the main point I want to make is, don't worry, you're not walking amongst a whole bunch of really religious people. You're not. There's plenty of opportunity if you are religious to drop into churches and things like that, but it's certainly not a key component for many people. So don't worry about that. What about age? You might be thinking, I'm a bit old. Am I going to be walking along with all these young hikers sort of going along at a blistering speed? It's interesting, if you look at the statistics, a very large proportion of people are over 50 and over 60. I think something like 50% of people are over 40, might even be over 50. There's probably a simple reason for that, because it's older people probably have more time in their lives to be able to do it. They're maybe not under as much work pressure and things like that, so they've got the time to take out. But you meet a really broad cross-section of ages, so that there's quite a few middle-aged people. You'll meet people in their 70s and 80s, many of whom are absolutely inspirational, the distances they're walking. You'll certainly meet a younger crowd. In the 3 Caminos I've walked, I haven't really met a lot of teenagers. They probably don't have the wherewithal to sort of take the time out and the funds and so on to do it, to be honest. But loads of people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, right across the age range. So, you're not going to be out of place whatever age you are. So don't think of that as being an issue. What about levels of fitness? Oh, I've spoken a few times about fitness on this channel. Go and hunt out the video about Confessions of a Fat Pilgrim, me. No, you are not going to meet all of these super fit hikers who trek, the Appalachian Trail or whatever in America. You're going to meet a few people who are, quite fit and walk quite long distances every day. And a few of them are probably there because they love hiking, and this is a great place to hike because of all the accommodation options and things along the way. The majority, I'd say, probably again at least half, are probably not hikers at all. Probably not people who generally do a lot of walking, and they've been drawn to the Camino for other reasons. So don't worry too much about levels of fitness. Now, don't take that the wrong way. If you can boost your level of fitness before you go, you'll appreciate it. But it's not a place where you're going to meet all these ultra fit long distance hikers, is what I'm saying. It's everyday people, moms and pops, middle-aged people, some elderly people who just enjoy walking in nature all day, every day for a few weeks. So you're not going to feel out of place, whatever your level of fitness. Gender. I have to be careful with this question. How many genders do we need to talk about? I'll be old-fashioned and say that actually the gender mix is probably 50-50, male and female. Certainly from the statistics I've looked at in recent years. Some people are walking on their own, some people are walking as a couple, some people might walk with friends, some people might be walking as a family. I think most people tend to be walking with one other person or on their own, as a general observation. If you're female and you're going on your own and you're worried about that, there's a couple of other videos on the channel about that. I did one with Sarah Duma, who you may know, talking about safety for women on their own. A lot of women kind of buddy up on the Camino, which I think is good. Regardless of your gender or age or whatever, you're going to meet other people that you really connect with and get on with. And it's quite natural to sort of walk with other people. And I think for a lot of females walking on their own that I've met and spoken to, they have actually buddied up with other female pilgrims along the way as well. So because they like walking with them, but they felt maybe more secure doing that as well. So whatever your gender, whether you're going on your own or as a group or with a couple, don't worry about that. Is there any other concerns you might have about who you're walking with? I think we've probably covered them all. You're going to meet people of all shapes, sizes, ages. I mean, that's absolutely fascinating. Nationalities, that's what I haven't spoken about. I think that's delightful, the way that you meet so many people of different cultures and nationalities. Gee, I've met terrific people from, just to give you in one Camino, I would have spent time with people from Germany, from Denmark, from Italy, from Spain, Australia, New Zealand, USA, Canada, Ireland, almost every country on earth. I met some Korean ladies, Taiwanese lady, and that's one of the really great things I think about the Camino, is that you get this sort of moving body of humanity walking along this trail towards Santiago from all different sort of backgrounds and cultures and ages and nationalities and so on. So you're going to meet people from all over. So yeah, if you speak any languages other than your own, you probably get a chance to try them out. I speak some very bad German. I've certainly used that. And a little bit of very bad French. I haven't been able to practice my very bad Thai, only with my wife Pat, who has walked with me. But yeah, if you whatever language you speak as your own or as other languages, there's a fair chance that you're going to be able to utilize that on the journey. So what was this video about? Well, I just kind of had this thought that, maybe some people out there kind of worry about or are a little bit nervous about who else they might be meeting and having to share accommodation with and so on. Don't be. You're going to meet people of all types. The one thing I have found they have in common is that they're generally really nice people. The Camino doesn't seem to attract idiots. I don't know why. You know, of the hundreds of people that I have met and spent time with walking on the Caminos, I can't think of one that I kind of didn't like, honestly. It's the sort of thing that people do. Well, we can say it's not the sort of thing that people do who are not nice people, maybe, or not easy people to get on with, or I don't know. I'm kind of rambling there a bit, but I think you know what I mean. So if you have any concerns about who you might meet along the way in the dormitory, I really wouldn't worry about it. So put that right out of your mind. And for people who have walked the Camino, please do add your comments down below. Have you met any idiots along there? Probably the occasional one, but I'm struggling to think of any. Any questions? Ask them down below. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Bye for now.